As nature photographers, we don't only come across friendly animals in the field, there's also some dangerous and potentially deadly ones out there.
Have you ever had any close calls in the field? I know that Jan and I both have.
Welcome back, guys. By the time you're watching this video, Glenn is likely in the middle of the ocean somewhere being swept by monster waves. So where are you actually going?
Got a really exciting trip coming up to Antarctica. Hopefully by the time you guys are watching this video, I'll have made it through the rough seas and will be somewhere out in the middle of the ocean, or maybe even on South Georgia Island by then. But basically I'm going down to Patagonia, then I'm going to the Falkland Islands, then I'm going to South Georgia, and I'm going to Antarctica.
Well, that sounds pretty amazing. I was hoping I might be able to join on this trip, but my health didn't really allow it. But hopefully at a future point in time, we'll be able to do that, because there must be some amazing animals down there.
Definitely. I mean, when you think about this part of the world, probably the first bird that comes to your mind is...
Penguins?
That's what most people would think of. And certainly there's a number of species of penguins and some fantastic photo opportunities. There's also some other cool stuff too. I mean, you spend a lot of time out at sea, so you have opportunities to photograph some different seabirds, like some of these amazing albatross species that sometimes are just flying around following the boat, different petrels, shearwaters, storm petrels, things like that. It's the special nature of the places you're visiting and the really cool species that is certainly the reason why I'm going.
And from what I've seen sort of in the past, from your trips in the past, it does seem like the animals are fairly approachable down there as well. So it's not so much hiding and chasing them. They kind of come to you a fair bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've only been to that area of the world once before, but I definitely remember one time I was just sitting on the beach and the penguins just walk right up to you, and the seals, they don't seem to really care. If anything, the rules have gotten a little tighter down there, and you have to maintain a certain distance now. So if anything, you might have to actually be getting away from the animals as they're coming towards you.
I know that whenever I meet you, Glenn, and you go on a trip, you bring a ridiculous amount of gear with you. How's that going to work on a trip like this, where you have to go on small airplanes and a boat?
There's not really a need for a really big telephoto lens. You don't have to bring a 600. And of course, then you don't necessarily have to bring a big tripod either. You don't need stuff to do perch setups. You're not going to get a penguin up on a nice perch.
Would be good though.
So basically, there's a lot of the kind of heavier gear that you can leave at home. So that is quite helpful.
So, I mean, Antarctica, we think it's probably pretty cold down there. Is that the case? Like, do you have to bring some serious winter clothing?
Yes and no. I mean, I think you're right. The visual that people come to mind is this like crazy, windy, snowy scene, and it's minus 50 degrees. That's unlikely at this time of year. It's the springtime, and I suspect, we're going to be largely close to the shoreline. I remember from the last time I went, there was days when I was just wearing a single t-shirt basically out photographing.
So you're saying there's a chance we see you in another tank top?
I'm actually not packing any sleeveless shirts for this trip. When you're out photographing, there's two parts of your body that tend to get really cold, and the parts that almost always really bother you, stop laughing, Jan, is your hands and your feet. So for me, the most important thing to keep warm are your hands. So that's where some really specialty equipment comes in. I really like these. Now this, you might think, wow, that's a pretty flimsy glove. That's not going to keep you warm, and definitely wouldn't. But I have all my dexterity. The one that's going to keep me warm is this big guy. So this is like a sleeping bag. I just tuck my little hand in there. I can tighten it down. And what's cool is it's got this zipper, and boom, there's my fingers I can operate, and there's my thumb. Now I can operate my camera. Oh, starting to get cold. I just tuck it back in there and zip it back up, pop it back in, and I'm warm again. And I know a lot of the people who watch this show live in cold climates, so let us know down in the comments, do you have some special gloves that you love to use, some great bits of equipment? I want to show you guys one more piece of equipment, which is these USB-C powered hand warmers that I'm going to be using inside of my gloves as a little extra bonus to keep me warm in the field. They click together like that, charge them up with USB-C. Hopefully they'll do the trick.
So it sounds like the animals you're going to encounter, like penguins and seals, are all going to be pretty nice, but not all animals are friendly, are they?
Definitely not. We here in British Columbia, where I live, were recently reminded of that. There was, unfortunately, a couple that was killed by a grizzly bear last week here. At this time of year, the bears are hungry, and maybe this one was malnourished, and unfortunately, they lost their lives. You definitely want to be prepared for the conditions and the animals and whatever we might encounter when we're out there in the field.
Yeah, that sounds pretty crazy. I mean, here in Australia, we don't have any bears, but people like to say everything tries to kill you down here. And I wouldn't say that's true, but there's definitely a lot of poisonous and dangerous animals you come across. And snakes in particular are fairly common. There's a few snake skins I found on my roof, for instance. So you're always reminded that there's definitely snakes around. And here in Queensland, it's a lot of pythons. They're not too dangerous, but they're pretty big. And sometimes you even encounter them on the middle of the open beach. There was two males the other day just fighting on the beach where everyone was swimming. So they just mind their own business. And I think generally with snakes, if you mind your business and let them do their business, it's not too dangerous. But it often happens you're like walking around, you put your foot down, and suddenly
Yeah.
it's like, I think that looks like the tail end of a snake, or you sort of see a snake wiggling away. So you definitely have a few close encounters. I probably had at least 5 to 10 over my years in Australia where you're pretty close to a pretty deadly snake, but nothing has ever happened when I slowly retreat one way and give the snake enough space to go the other way.
Do you in Australia, do you ever wear any special boots? Or I usually see on your YouTube videos you're in flip-flops. So it doesn't seem like you're taking the precautions that seriously.
You can, and sometimes I wear these, but usually only when I walk through spin effects because it's just like someone poking needles into your legs, which is not very nice. And like I said, with snakes, you don't encounter them that regularly that you feel like you have to wear this all the time because it's a bit annoying to wear. Maybe I'm pushing my luck a little bit, but generally, I think if you're aware of your surroundings, look where you're stepping, and if you see something, kind of retreat from it, it's usually okay.
I remember in Western Australia there a few years back, there was those tiger snakes that were around the water areas, and those ones I
Yeah.
definitely a couple of times had one come quite close to me. But most of the time with snakes, they don't want to be anywhere near you. If they see you, they go the other way. We've talked enough about snakes. For those who have snake phobias, we're sorry.
There's one animal though in Australia that's pretty dangerous because it actually wants to eat you, and that's the big saltwater crocodiles up north. They're pretty dangerous for people, so you have to stay away from the edge of the water up there, and they routinely eat people's dogs as well. So if you're up north, stay away from the water and don't go swimming in the ocean near river mouths or in the rivers like a lot of backpackers seem to do and sometimes get eaten.
What about a bird that you were photographing not that long ago, the mighty cassowary?
Well, that's definitely another bird that has a lot of myths surrounding it, and many people saying it's very dangerous. And I think it's definitely not a bird you want to go and pat. But again, if you behave in a decent way and you're looking at the bird and seeing what it's doing, then it's also not too dangerous to come across it. And obviously, it also depends where you come across it. If you're in the middle of the rainforest and you come across a bird that hasn't seen many people and it has three little babies with it, and you maybe position yourself between the bird and the babies, it can happen that it will get pretty aggressive and get after you. But if you're somewhere at the beach, at a location where the birds are pretty much walking through the caravan park, it's a lot less likely that they suddenly attack you. But you still want to be careful because check out the claw on that cassowary. Like it's literally like a knife they have on the foot. So you definitely don't want to be kicked by that. But I think here key is to understand the bird's behavior, watch what it's doing, and if it's suddenly starting to stand up, make funny sounds, or look angry at you, it's probably time to retreat a little bit.
The things that actually are more concerning to me when I'm on a trip would be like the condition of the roads. You know, could I get stuck somewhere or the road could collapse and if a landslide comes? Things like if I'm in the forest and it's windy and the branches are coming down, I never want to be in a tropical rainforest when it's windy.
Yeah, or just not being prepared. I remember the very first time we're going to the outback, we had this rental car, we're just happily driving, and then it's like bang, bang. We popped two tires. We had one spare tire, and it was a fair distance to the next town. So it's a pretty hairy situation. In the end, we walked for a while, found one bar of reception somewhere, and could call someone in to get us out. But these are the things where you definitely want to prepare. And this wasn't even that remote. So whenever we travel now, we have at least 2 or 3 spare tires with us because
Yeah.
you really don't want to be stuck somewhere and not have any tires.
Another thing that sometimes is a small thing that you might not think about are certain types of insects or parasites.
Ugh.
I know for me, I've gotten at least two parasites over my travels over the years, and it's never fun to come back with one of those living in your belly.
Oh yeah, ticks and leeches and all these other nasty little things is definitely something I hate much more than a snake. I feel like I see a snake and I can kind of react to it, where some little creepy crawly coming up on you is
Yeah.
often very hard to spot and definitely not much fun. What about you guys? What's your most hated animals in the field that you definitely try to stay away from?
Yeah, let us know down in the comments if you've had any close calls with dangerous animals or just other tips that the other viewers might appreciate.
Yeah, how to avoid them.
Okay, we've talked enough about dangerous, scary animals, and we mentioned the penguins that I'm hoping to go see, but I think now it's time to talk about some of your guys' photos, and it's time for the photo of the week.
So the first image I brought is by Aperture Mode with this really cool Cooper's hawk on a nice open perch, but with a little bit of visible background sort of around it as well, and some leaves coming off the branch. So really nice photo. But like always, there's one thing I would probably like to change. And do you have any idea what that might be?
Maybe. I mean, I think for me, the most distracting element of this image is that there's quite a lot of like bright area right in front of the bird's face. So for me, I'd be thinking about if there's ways that I could potentially work on that. I like the out of focus coniferous kind of branches
Yeah.
in the background, but what I'm struggling with on this image a little bit is the kind of mix of sort of the deciduous foliage on the perch and then this other type of foliage in the background. And then you've got those sort of bright spots around the bird. So those are the things that I'm kind of are drawing my eye. So, but what were you going to say, Jan?
I was exactly going to say the same. So pretty much for me, it was
Ah,
the bright spots right around the bird's face and some of the needles sort of coming down. I like those branches as well. So what we'd probably do in this case is paint or brush over the bright spots a little bit to lessen them. And I would probably be tempted to go over the really dark bits of the tree in the background as well. I wouldn't remove it, but maybe just less make the dark bits a bit more green so it just feels more even right behind the bird's head, because we always want to look at the bird's eye to get the most sort of impact of the image. But in this case, your eye is instantly drawn sort of to the right side of the head in front of the beak because of these
yeah.
bright spots and the needles. So if we work on that a little bit, I think we can improve an already great image even more.
So yeah, if you guys want to learn some of the techniques that Jan just mentioned, be sure to check out Jan's masterclass video and my ebooks down in the description.
So what's your images of the week, Glenn? Is it going to be a sunbird?
Well, not first. The first image I've brought for us is by Nathan Watson Photography. We've got a really strong silhouette of the bird, the secondary bird, and quite a strong, interesting shape, and then some nice pop of color. So I actually really like this image. This is kind of one of those sort of like birds as art styles of image. What do you think, Jan?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting image. It works really well for me. The only thing I'd question is the amount of dead space we're getting by having this much of the black rock in the picture. Because I love the lines in this image, so I feel like it would be nice if that steep line came further more from the upper right corner and then continued a bit longer along the bottom to give us a really cool sort of upside down L flow in the image. But that's just me, maybe.
Why don't you guys let us know? Would you crop this image tighter or would you leave it as presented? Because I think this is one where it could really divide people, and also it's a very subjective type of thing.
All right, the next image I brought is of a sunbird. And I just thought it was a really nice image that could definitely do with a little bit of editing. What do you think, Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool natural history moment. We've got the bird at its nest, presumably. There's some good stuff going on here, but then there's also some sort of distracting elements.
The first thing, I feel like there's a little bit of an imbalance between our main subject and then the leaves and the background. What we really want in this photo is the nest to shine and the female sunbird to sort of stand out. And there's a few distracting elements like the leaves on the top left. I think they're a bit bright. And then there's definitely that funny leaf line at the bottom. First, I thought that's like a blurred out signature. So that's probably something that I would just get rid of. And then I would use a few layers from our brush pack to make the bird a bit brighter, make the bird stand out, brush in a little bit more saturation with like a special adjustment layer. And then I would also use another adjustment layer to tone down the leaves, pull out a little bit of saturation, and probably make them darker. So basically tone down the edges and put more emphasis emphasis on the middle of the photo, the true subject.
Yeah, and this is where those selective editing brushes that we offer in our brush pack can be really helpful, because all you need to do, play the action, paint it in, and you've got those very targeted changes to an image. So those could be really helpful on this image. All right, so for my second image, I'm sticking with more of an abstract type photo here. Jan, hopefully you'll like this one better. It's not most of the photos black.
Hey, I did like the
most
other
of the
one.
photo is white. So this is like obviously an overcast day along a very, very clean kind of beach where the bright white sky is reflecting in, and you essentially have like a high key style of image. So this can be a very successful type of image to do. So Tobias Photography did a nice job here with this little shorebird. So I like this. The bird's running along. You can see the reflection. It's a high key type of shot. What do you think, Jan?
I think it's a really nice shot. It's probably one of the harder sort of sandpipers to get in Europe as well, the purple sandpiper. I don't know if you have any shots of it, so it's always not very common. And I think he said, I watched YouTube videos of his as well, where he said these are the only sandpipers that actually stay over winter in northern Norway as well. So they must be pretty tough little birds. So I think it's like snow and ice it might be reflecting on. So that's how he gets that cool look.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really cool image, but somehow I have a heavy cropping hand this week. So I think this could also work, especially on Instagram, tighter. Because with a shot like this on Instagram, to get it a bit of traction, I think cropping this tighter, focusing more on the reflection and the bird would probably help. If you have this on your wall or at an exhibition, this is perfect. For Instagram, I think there would be a real benefit to crop this tighter, even though it ruined some of the composition, but will help to show people more what the image is truly about.
That's interesting that you say that this could potentially be snow and ice. I didn't consider that, but that's definitely possible, yeah.
The last image I brought is by Kalya Asim of this awesome looking scaly-breasted munia on a great perch with a great background and good looking light, and it's just an overall really nice looking bird and photo, and there's just a few little tweaks that I would make, because it seems like the bird was a little bit dark in the face on the throat, so he lit up the image a fair bit, but I think it's now lacking a little bit of contrast and has a few color cast, a little bit of a green color cast, like on the belly, for instance. So I'd probably use like a contrast adjustment layer from our brush pack, brush over the bird a little bit, and also clean up the feathers on the belly a little bit, make it a little bit more white, and just kind of remove that green and blue cast I see sort of on the flanks of the bird, and then maybe add a bit of overall contrast in the image as well, and we got a perfect looking, awesome image.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why we developed these specific brushes, the common scenarios that you come across with. So our clean up whites brush would allow you to just clean up those white feathers on the underside of the bird. Okay guys, so my last photo this week is of this golden crowned spadebill by Birding Crew from down in Costa Rica. And I'm gonna throw it right over to you, Jan. There's something in this image that might be a little distracting.
It is an awesome image, but it definitely looks like there's an autofocus floodlight or LED light right above the bird's head with some sort of stick going through that as well. So I think if you're happy to clone out things or remove things, that would have to go.
You know, this is where a little bit of cloning and object removal, obviously we don't want to tell people what to do with their images, but this could just be such a stronger image, removing all of that upper kind of mess that's up there. And all of a sudden the bird is really the star of the show. Your eye is drawn right to that beautiful, cute little bird and not to that bright thing in the background. So a great shot. If it's within your kind of whatever, like ethics as a photographer, I would definitely clone out that bright spot.
Because I think this is what we always try to achieve. We want to put the main focus on the main subject. So we're trying to not do crazy stuff or remove too much. We're just trying to put the main focus on the main subject, which is the bird in our photo. So if you have something that really competes for attention with the bird, that's things that we would usually remove, like in the hawk at the beginning where the bright background competed with the face. And same thing here, if something that's brighter than the bird is in your background, your eyes are always drawn to that. And that's things that we usually try to eliminate, so the hero of the image, the bird, can really shine.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I think that just about does it for this episode. So be sure to let us know about any dangerous animal encounters that you've had down in the description. And we'll be back again soon. I guess I'm somewhere out in Antarctica right now, but we'll be back soon with another episode.
So hopefully we will see you again, Glenn, and we will see all of you in the next episode. Bye, guys.
See you next time.